Hello and welcome to the Genre Fiction Podcast. I am Jack Roney.
And I'm Harry Colfer.
Hey, Harry, I'm really super excited to introduce our next guest, Stephen M. Irwin. Stephen is a showrunner, producer, screenwriter, and novelist. He was co-creator, co-executive producer, and head writer of the forensic crime drama series Harrow. Stephen also wrote the original crime drama Secrets and Lies, which was remade in the US by the ABC network. Also, the award-winning miniseries Wake in Fright, which I really want to ask a lot of questions about. Wake in Fright, really cool movie and adaptation. Also, the feature film Australia Day. Stephen also co-created the Netflix drama series Tidelands, and his critically acclaimed supernatural novels The Broken Ones and The Dead Path, which I believe was also known under the title of The Darkening, have been published around the world. So I feel we're really privileged to have someone of the caliber of Stephen Irwin with us today. So g'day, Stephen. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure's mine, Jack, and hi to you, Harry.
G'day.
Hey, Stephen, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I don't even know if you remember this, but I kind of feel that the universe conspired for us to cross paths some years ago. And again, I don't know whether you'd remember it. Just incidentally, I now live in the house that you used to live in, and there was years ago I received a package that was addressed to you, but in my haste to, oh cool, I got a package, I didn't even see that it wasn't in my name, and I ripped open the package, and inside the package was your first novel. At the time it was titled The Darkening, and then I realized, and it came with a note, and I believe it was like an early version that had been sent to you by your publisher for you to review. And I thought, oops, this parcel wasn't meant for me. And so I actually got in contact with you via your publisher to say, look, I'm really sorry, but I inadvertently opened a parcel that was addressed to you. Where can I send it? And you were very gracious, I remember, and you said, that's fine, you keep it. And I did, and I read it, and I loved it. And that, I think that was a big inspiration for me. And I don't know, do you actually remember that at all, Steve?
I remember the fact that you bought the house that I used to live in, and I thought that was hilarious because it was a house in which I actually did a lot of really interesting and fun creative work. I sort of did some of the work on The Dead Path there and so forth. Did the American rewrite of it in that house. Also got rid of some horrible Suede effects walls. Very much missed the overhead projector in the media room. And no, we were very happy. What I remember is that the real estate agent saying, oh, it's a really nice family moving in. And
then we turned up.
They always say that.
And it turned out to be you. No, and then fortunately, it wasn't any parcel with anything inflatable in it, for instance. It was that ended up on your doorstep. So it was great. And and I remember when you and I crossed paths again, and that information came out, and learning that you, Jack, are a novelist, of course. Now it just sweetened the deal.
Yeah, it was quite, whether it's karma or whatever you want to call it, but yeah, maybe there's some energy in this house. But there you go, the world, it's a small world, isn't it?
Well, it's a small town, Brisbane too.
Yeah.
We do tend to cross paths with our fellow gentlemen of the road and gentlewomen of the road fairly regularly, which is nice. It is a bit more of a foxhole buddy family up here.
Oh yeah, definitely. Particularly the writing community. I know you, Harry, as well. You've met a lot of really wonderful people here in Brisbane. The writing community seems very close, and people you see each other. Like we got coming weekend, we've got the Genre Con. I can't even say Genre Con, Queensland Writers Centre, and you always see the same people. It's a real community of writers.
And they are lovely folk at the QWC. I can't speak more highly of them, and they were really instrumental, advertently or inadvertently on my journey to becoming, a writer of, if that's, I think that's how I put myself on my passport. So I think that's what I call myself now. That's really important.
Do you see yourself more as a screenwriter as opposed to an author, or which one? Which is your preferred?
In my heart of hearts, I still love to think of myself as a novelist, not because there's any sort of snobbery or anything about it. It's that my first love of writing was from reading long form. not from consuming television. When I were a lad, television, was reruns of Gilligan's Island and Hogan's Heroes, and so it wasn't the amazing television that's on offer today. So I certainly never saw myself as being a TV writer, but probably from late primary school and certainly in high school, I think I knew I wanted to be a writer of sorts, and if the gods were kind, a novelist. So I think it'd be interesting to hear what the situation was for both of you, but for me it was kind of built in, it was baked in from the outset.
So maybe that's a good place to start in terms of, in our previous conversations, you make reference to what you refer to as your journey of learning, and you've had such a varied career, and you've done so many things, from, I guess where, first question is, where did that first fire ignite, the desire to write? You talk about from high school all the way through to art college, on the job training, doing corporate videos and documentaries and short stories and poetry and novels, all the way through to television production. Tell us about that journey.
I think it started really by dint of the fact that I have 5 sisters and no brothers. And so I became quite adept at taking myself away to avoid getting made over. And so I'd grab a book and go up on the garage roof or under the house and just keep myself to myself, and loved to read. And I loved fantasy books. We had great libraries at the schools. I was very fortunate. The schools I went to were frequented by the children of a lot of academics at the University of Queensland. I went to Ironside in St Lucia. I went to Indooroopilly State High, also in the western suburbs. And so I think to help cater towards the clientele, the libraries in both of those schools were really replete with good works. And I loved fantasy and science fiction. Susan Cooper's The Dark is Rising was a favorite when I was young, moving on to Ray Bradbury, and then the Conan novels and the Swords of Lankhmar and all of those other great fantasy books. So I guess I started writing as well, but more, not so much for pleasure, but in class. And a moment occurred when the teacher read one of my little satirical comedic essays and asked me to read it to the class. And I think I would have died 1,000 deaths if I could have avoided it, but it just had to happen. And so I did. I was nervous as hell, but then the kids started laughing, which was good because it was me. And by the end of it, they were all kind of hooked and clapping at the end. And I think it was just pure ego. I went, I like this.
So they were laughing with you, not at you. So that was a great start.
It is always a good sign. If there's no fresh or rotten produce being thrown your way and the laughter comes at the right moments, you're on a winner. Yeah. But the other good thing was I was doing academic subjects in year 11, science and physics and chemistry and maths too, and all that. But I changed over to film and television and to arts in my final year, I think, which may have disappointed my parents. I don't know. There was grand designs that I was going to be a quantity surveyor at one point. But auspicious. Yeah, I know. So I shifted gears and ended up writing the final year film and directing it too, if memory serves. But what was great was that, again, it's that small town, the connection in Brisbane. That my film and TV teacher knew one of the heads of department at what was then the Seven Hills Queensland College of Art, and suggested that I, do the film and television production stream at QCA for 3 years. And that's what I ended up doing. And I really loved it. And after that, I kind of went into, I went away from writing prose into film writing, and I was really bad at it for a long time. I graduated, had no idea what to do. There was really no film industry to speak of in Queensland at the time. So I ended up doing an awful lot of odd jobs. I was a drinks waiter, and as you were saying, Jack, I did all sorts of weird and wonderful jobs. I was a roadie bumping in and out rock and roll shows at Festival Hall and Boondall. But the bug never quite went away. I worked as a handyman for many years, but all of those were really great jobs because they were diverse, and I was forced to meet lots of people, always out of a comfort zone. And so when and all through this, I was continuing to try and write, feature screenplays, grand works, which were all pretty bad. But I kept also writing shorter works, and I got some funding to make a short film that helped me along the way with doing a lot of corporate writing. In those days, lots of companies would commission freelance companies to make corporate or training videos. And so I, did some work for New South Wales Transport on how to build a road, and how to build galvanized pipe, and how to make float glass, and all of these other things, hundreds of corporate videos, which content-wise were not very exciting. How the Brisbane Airport baggage handling system operates. But it was finding story in the chaos, and that discipline of going, okay, how do you get people interested in this? They're going to have to watch it, but wouldn't it be better if they wanted to watch it, or at least didn't not want to watch it? So trying to find a beginning, a middle, and an end, a voice that sounded, approachable and spoke to, the target audience, whomever that might be.
So it's like those safety brief or safety videos that they've got on the planes now that are actually funny. People wanted to watch them.
Yeah, it's like there's an obligation to cut through the noise because there's so much of it if you're going to get people's attention, and that is a commodity that's diminished in the last few years because of social media and other things. I think that it's a really sad state of affairs, but we will circle back to that because I think human curiosity triumphs in the end. But I did keep writing fictional works. Got some funding to make some documentaries, made a couple of documentaries for SBS. So that's also finding story in the chaos of real life. Did one on the old Boggo Road jail, did one on the Min Min lights out in Boulia, and also wrote some short films, and they got some funding and won some awards, which was great and very validating. And I think that that's an important thing to mention, is to have validation from time to time on this journey, because there's only so much what Americans would call gas in the tank. And if you're and it's a solitary business, right, chaps? It's, when you're doing it by yourself, it's kind of self-sustaining. There's a degree of ego, and there's a degree of, well, I've crossed the Rubicon, I might as well keep going. But in the earlier days, it's very easy. There are plenty of reasons not to do it. There are plenty of reasons to quit. So, getting some validation and getting some awards is great. And that's where the Queensland Writers Centre was great for me at that point in my career, because I had subscribed to their, I think it was monthly magazine, which was a hard copy at that point. And the centre spread was competitions. It was open competitions for short fiction, longer fiction, poetry. And so some of the ideas that I was having, which didn't really work as short films, but I thought were still good stories, I would write as short stories and enter them into these competitions. And they, they started winning some, competitions as well, which was in a way even more exciting than winning them for the short films, because I think that the competition pool felt bigger. You know, I think there's more budding novelists in the world than budding screenwriters, but maybe that's shifted. So that was really great, and I owe a debt of gratitude to the Queensland Writers Centre, who continue to be a really great resource for emerging writers, and to just help people who don't know what to do from this point, wherever they are in life, whether they're 16 or 66 or 96. You know, they're great and lovely people who really just want to help people realize their potential. And then but I continued to, you know, pay the bills with corporate videos, you know, do bigger ones for Australia Post and, you know, so forth. And a lull came up, and I went, oh, I could write another feature film which won't get made, or I could spend this little bit of time that I've earned and write a novel, because I haven't tried that before. So I thought, oh, I'll give that a crack.
And sorry, at that point, you had already written a screenplay or some full-length screenplays?
I'd written the short screenplays, and they'd done all right, but none of the feature screenplays that I had written were any good, basically. And they hadn't really found, they'd found producers, but none of them had been able, they were all kind of producers that were no more elevated in their capacity than I was as a writer. We were at the same level of nobody knows who we are. So, so they never really got anywhere, and it was quite frustrating because I didn't know how to break through. So I thought, well, I'll just spend this time writing a novel instead. And so I've always loved ghost stories. Probably, you know, one of my older sisters is always a ghost story nut, and she had the Amityville Horror hanging around the house when I was a kid, and all these other terrifying books. So she kind of got me onto Stephen King, which was the next step after Ray Bradbury. So I decided to write a ghost story, and I wrote a manuscript which was at that point called The Ghost Man, and I didn't know what to do with it. So and this is where, you know, I must encourage people to just turn up to stuff. I turned up to, I saw, and it might have been in the QWC magazine, that there was a publicist, a manuscript publicist who, you know, worked with Jackie Collins and all these other famous people, who was visiting Brisbane and doing a talk. You had to pay to turn up, of course. And he did his talk about, you know, his interesting career with all the, you know, famous authors he'd helped, you know, publicize around the world. Afterwards, I hit him up. I said, I've got a manuscript. I don't know what to do with it. It's a ghost story and blah, 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 blah. Bless him. He had enough pity on me to say, well, look, I know an agent in Sydney. Give me your name. Tell me, you know, roughly what the story is again. And I did. And he said, look, I'll get in touch with her. If she's interested, she'll get in touch with you. And he followed through. He got in touch with this agent, and she got in touch with me, and I sent her the first chapter, and then she said, send me the rest. And I sent her the rest. And then she said, I think we can place this. And she did. She placed it with Hachette Australia. And we did a pass with a wonderful, with Vanessa Radnich, a fantastic editor. And it got published in, you know, Germany and England and China and, you know, the United States under Doubleday. And it was a really, that's a validating moment, which I know you can appreciate. Sure. When you see your name on the spine of a book that's on a bookshelf, that's kind of a special moment. And and that was pretty delightful. I think that was the moment that I thought, actually, I can call myself a writer now and not, you know, pretend that I'm a writer, but really I work as, you know, a handyman, or really I work as a drinks waiter. So,
and that's that magic question, isn't it? At what point are you entitled to call yourself a writer? You know, at what point have you achieved that kind of status and credibility to actually call yourself a writer?
Well, I think there's two parts to that. I think you have to call yourself a writer from the very start, or you won't have the energy to continue.
Yeah, definitely.
But when someone actually not only pays you the first time, that pays you a second time, when they call you back, I think that's when you realize, yeah, okay, I can write. When they want me back.